Hey everyone, welcome back to the hardware news recap for the week. We're probably going to have two for you this week in rapid succession because there's a lot of hardware news. So in this episode, we're talking about Intel on a tear right now. They have their new Arc Pro series GPUs that just came out as well, in addition to the 200 series refresh CPUs that were pretty good. I mean, our review of the 270K, if you haven't seen it, 270K Plus, was pretty positive because that CPU is very competitive with AMD's 9950X, and it is a lot cheaper, like half the price. So that was good to see. It's unfortunate that the RAM situation is so bad, it's really putting a damper on everything for Intel having an actual CPU that's worth paying attention to. But nonetheless, it was cool to see something that actually is competitive come out on the market and isn't stupidly overpriced. Like some of these, the $200 CPU for the 250KP, that's a big change from what we've been dealing with in the RAM and GPU situation. Also in the news, NVIDIA wants you. NVIDIA's Jensen Huang is all in on war. That's like what he said.
There's a reason we went to war, and I believe at the end of the war, Middle East will be more stable than before. And so if we were there, if we were considering it before, we should absolutely be considering it after. And so I'm 100% in on that.
Jensen Huang, that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna export AI with the democracy we're exporting. Also, NVIDIA has facial recognition technology that can identify people within milliseconds of seeing their face, even with face coverings. Why? Why, Jensen? Why do you make me discuss these topics on my hardware news show? Why do you make me do it? Oh, there is good news. YouTube lost a lawsuit. Let's get started. Before that, this video is brought to you by the Montech HSO1 and HSO2 cases. The HSO1 and HSO2 cases differ by way of a mesh front or a curved glass front. We previously reviewed these cases in our intensive benchmarking process and found them to be overall high build quality, with thermals comparable between the two designs. The rear chamber of the case uniquely brings the power supply forward and perforates the rear wall of the case, allowing for more air movement internally while providing a different look. The rear of the case uses a fan mounting mechanism for two separate fans that can be coupled together with a plate, improving convenience. The HSO1 and HSO2 also invert with minimal effort, allowing the computer to present to the opposite side without needing to reconfigure the entire build. Learn more at the links in the description below. This one's really quick. First item is AMD has finally announced its 9950X3D2. And this was just a day or so after ASRock accidentally, I think a second time, revealed that it was coming, but then they retracted that press release. But now it's here. So AMD has announced the 9950X3D2. This is a dual CCD, dual V-cache solution. So unlike the 9950X3D that's currently out, this one adds the extra cache also on top of the second CCD, so that's even more cache. And they've also increased the TDP for it. It has a total 208 megabytes of on-chip cache and totality. AMD's official product page lists its latest Zen 5 processor as featuring 16 cores, a 4.3 gigahertz base clock, up to 5.6 gigahertz boost, 200 watt TDP, and a 192 megabyte L3 cache. So that's just the L3 for that number, which improves upon the previously released 9950X3D's 128 megabytes of L3 cache. And TDP also increases by 30 watts, which will aid in maintaining clocks, but of course means it'll pull more power. Regarding its performance, AMD had some claims for first-party testing. They claimed the 9950X3D2 is 5 to 10% improved against the original 9950X3D, not 2. The funniest part, though, of this announcement is not the announcement itself, but the fact that over 80% of the comments are things like, release the FSR4 files, people flooding AMD and bullying them to try and get support on older devices, which we know is possible. The 9950X3D2 should mostly be interesting in situations where, one, obviously the cache is already beneficial, so that's going to be gaming for the most part in our tests. We don't see a lot of uplift from the extra cache on the X3D solutions in our non-gaming tests. Not to say it never happens, but for the workloads we test, we don't really see it. So mostly we see that in gaming. Adding more cache, to me, it's academically, it's really interesting, meaning not necessarily at a product level, but just I'm curious to see which games will show a benefit and if we're kind of at diminishing returns at some point. It seems like more cache on the chip is always going to be better because you're reducing hits out to system memory by that much. But probably when you're going from something like 128 to 192, somewhere in there is going to be diminishing returns, I think. So anyway, it'll be really interesting to test. The performance versus the price is probably going to be a problem because if they're claiming 5 to 10%, the price is going to be kind of rough. This likely was fast-tracked, it seems like, maybe to try and bury Intel's relatively successful Arrow Lake refresh. It seems like that got buried on its own thanks to the RAM pricing, which, I mean, I don't blame anyone. But Arrow Lake refresh, overall, fairly exciting for Intel. They had a good week where 270KP in particular, the 270K Plus, is competitive with the 9950X specifically in production workloads and in gaming workloads, but it's really the production ones that are troubling for AMD, where it's like half the price, or pretty close to it anyway, and very competitive in performance. So this may be AMD's way of trying to follow up, but it's going to be a higher price processor. I really doubt the performance will change very much in production applications. Obviously, we'll test it, but it's probably not going to move the needle a lot there. So it doesn't really change much the conclusion of the 270KP. Gaming, however, will be interesting again from an academic standpoint. So anyway, AMD has not yet confirmed the MSRP for the solution. They put out a 5-minute video. They announced it exists. That is about all they did. And they say that this is supposed to be coming soon in Q2 2026. Maybe Computex for the announcement. That would be first week of June, end of May, somewhere in there. But obviously, as soon as they actually send out samples or we're able to buy one or whatever the case may be, we'll do some testing on it. Let's start with just the computer hardware stuff today. We'll start easy and we'll ease into the part where NVIDIA's Jensen Huang is talking about the war in Iran and they're making technology that would be extremely good for domestic spying. After a strong week with the 250K Plus and 270K Plus, Intel also launched some GPUs, and the company has most recently added the B65 and B70 to its Pro lineup. The Arc Pro B65 spec defines 20 Xe cores, 20 RT units, 197 GPU peak tops, whatever that's worth, and a 200-watt TBP, or total board power, while the B70 lists 32 Xe cores, 32 RT units, and 367 GPU peak tops, and a 160 to 290 watt TBP, so a wide range here depending on board partners. Both cards will offer 32 gigabytes of GDDR6 at 608 gigabytes per second memory bandwidth, and support up to 4 displays. Intel positions its Pro GPUs as what they call AI workstation cards, with its marketing claiming, quote, seamless support across multiple GPUs, end quote, and writing that they can, quote, combine the power and memory of multiple GPUs to execute AI models in Linux that take 100 plus gigabytes of VRAM, end quote. To which NVIDIA said, 100 gigabytes, best I can do is 9. The Arc Pro B70 is listed for pre-order on Newegg, listing an April 24th release date and $950 MSRP at the time of writing, although the B65's launch price and date remain unclear at the time of writing this. Our friend Wendell over at Level 1 Techs has been talking about these cards as well, so if you're interested in these, we'd recommend checking out his video. It's on his channel. Wendell always does great work, so happy to send you his way for more info on these cards. Possible we do something with them at some point, but I'm not sure yet. He definitely is, though. Up next, NVIDIA's always-on facial recognition technology. Are you ready for probably like 10 minutes of great news about NVIDIA? Because we've got it for you, but you should know about it, especially Jensen's feelings on war. While NVIDIA professed its love for surveillance company Palantir at GTC in March, NVIDIA was already busy creating more spy-capable technologies earlier this year. NVIDIA unveiled a new facial recognition system at an IEEE conference in February, according to IEEE Spectrum. The engineering outlet reported that NVIDIA has developed an always-on, low-power facial recognition system for use in robotics, consumer devices, naming laptops as one of them, autonomous vehicles, and drones. Great! Technology for drones. Facial recognition technology, no less. And NVIDIA's partnered with this guy.
Well, I love the idea of getting a drone and having light fentanyl-laced urine spraying on analysts who tried to screw us.
At least now the fentanyl piss will be able to accurately hit my face. Wait, no, that's the editor's cut. The new computer vision system can, quote, detect human faces in less than a millisecond, end quote, after which point their partner Palantir can spray piss with fentanyl in it on them. This saves power by storing data locally, too. NVIDIA engineer Ben Keller presented this new system on behalf of the company. IEEE Spectrum summarized NVIDIA's technical presentation, writing, quote, according to the researchers, this kind of vision processing typically requires about 10 watts, but that's too much power to leave a face detection system on continuously. The NVIDIA system on chip uses less than 5 milliwatts with a frame rate of 60 FPS. The system refreshes to process a new image every 16.7 milliseconds. and is only fully powered on for 5% of that time, with IEEE Spectrum citing Keller for that. The quote continues, quote, "Within 787 milliseconds, the SoC calls on a deep learning accelerator to determine whether or not a human face is present with about 99% accuracy," end quote. Just a note, but processing 16.67 milliseconds for each image is the same as the 60 FPS rate, so it's the same thing. NVIDIA is currently working on major laptop engineering efforts. These include their new ARM CPUs that aren't announced yet, but are supposed to be probably called the N1X, and that'll likely be launched or announced at least at Computex more formally. And NVIDIA is also, with its 4% stake in Intel, got the RTX chiplet laptop solutions coming out in addition to whatever networking solutions it's doing and enterprise solutions. So they are, like the war in Iran, all in on laptops right now. And this is the perfect time to roll out a facial recognition technology that can go into them. Much of the SoC is powered off by default in NVIDIA's new system, except for a subsystem called Alpha Vision. In an abstract from the research paper, NVIDIA said that Alpha Vision is, quote, "always on low power subsystem for DNN inference-based vision tasks in edge SoCs," end quote. And the subsystem also doesn't allow external access to memory. An NVIDIA graphic shows that Alpha Vision remains on in sleep mode before powering the rest of the SoC when it detects a face in active mode. IEEE Spectrum said the required data is stored locally on the SRAM and that the, quote, "face recognition system rushes through its work and then quickly puts the SRAM into a low power sleep mode," end quote, which NVIDIA refers to as race to sleep. This is also what I call the end of my Crimson Desert benchmarking process. NVIDIA's investment in facial recognition technology isn't new. Back in 2012 or 2013, they were already moving on it. In fact, I remember going to NVIDIA's then HQ, probably about 2012 or 13, and they gleefully showed us their facial recognition technology, where I think the demo was showing people walking through an airport with a camera system auto-grabbing and identifying faces, and that was over a decade ago now. In July 2013, NVIDIA launched the GeoInt Accelerator, which the company called the, quote, "world's first GPU-accelerated geospatial intelligence platform," end quote. In a blog post, NVIDIA said the platform, quote, "provides defense and homeland security analysts with tools that enable faster processing of facial recognition and surveillance video," end quote, and that was 2013. Additionally, in April 2016, Phetdara Security, a company specializing in facial recognition, talked about how NVIDIA GPUs accelerated their solutions on the NVIDIA Developer YouTube channel.
We are focused in law enforcement projects. We have to be able to detect faces in crowds, and we have to solve the problem of very large resolutions. Let's say we're talking about 4K resolutions. We make use of GPUs to go very fast, to be able to detect faces very fast and to be able to process images coming especially from video streaming, and you have to scan these faces and in real time.
In a related blog post, NVIDIA said Phetdara Security's technologies, quote, "make it possible to record subjects automatically through on-the-fly video capture and works correctly even when the subject is wearing glasses, a hat, or their face is partially concealed. It even works with changes in facial expression, difficult lighting conditions, and slight rotations of the face," end quote. NVIDIA announced more surveillance company partnerships for its AI City initiative later in 2016. In a now-deleted blog post that we recovered via the Wayback Machine, NVIDIA said its Hikey Vision, Dahua, and Uniview partners are, quote, "the top 3 market share leaders for video surveillance products," end quote. NVIDIA also partnered with SenseTime, which it described as a, quote, "leader in facial and object recognition," end quote. The type of recognition that these companies are leaders in include patents for ethnic profiling via facial recognition technology. NVIDIA partnered with a company that filed a patent that explicitly named it is capable of identifying people by ethnicity, which only has good uses. There's no reason that would ever be abused. Notably, NVIDIA partner Dahua has been federally restricted in the past due to, quote, "involvement in human rights abuses and persistent cybersecurity vulnerabilities," end quote, per Nebraska's Attorney General. We also recognized SenseTime from the past Silver Lake investment prior to its divestiture, which we covered in our story about Jared Kushner and Saudi Arabia investing in EA Games, by which we mean buying it. The US government sanctioned SenseTime in 2021 for its connections to, quote, "human rights abuse and repression," end quote. A press release from the Treasury Department said SenseTime, quote, "has developed facial recognition programs that can determine a target's ethnicity with particular focus on identifying ethnic Uyghurs when applying for patent applications. Shenzhen SenseTime Technology Co. Limited has highlighted its ability to identify Uyghurs wearing beards, sunglasses, and masks," end quote. The sanctions prevented US citizens and companies from investing in SenseTime and required their divestiture. Gee, I wonder why NVIDIA seemingly deleted the blog posts. actually has nothing to do with any of this. The reason we had to dig it up through archive.org because the internet never forgets. But anyway, 2 for 2 on partnering with companies accused of human rights abuses, specifically through surveillance and facial recognition technology, which NVIDIA is accelerating the development of per these announcements. So NVIDIA openly showcases partnerships with companies like Palantir now.
Palantir.
And if you want to learn more about this stuff, we have a deep dive video on allegations that Palantir has enabled predictive policing in the past, aka pre-crime arrests, some Minority Report shit, and also generally what we think is war profiteering from the company. Now, NVIDIA has repeatedly emphasized its love of Palantir, and Jensen Huang has turned into a bit of a war pig as he's further embedded himself with companies like Palantir and the government. NVIDIA's decision to support surveillance companies and invest in facial recognition technology isn't new, obviously. That's why we went back to 2013 to tell you about it. This is despite clear dangers, or maybe because of clear dangers, that are created by this type of technology deployed indiscriminately, or in some cases discriminately, en masse. Wrongful arrests done through facial recognition happen all the time now, and facial recognition can be prone to biases, like racial biases and otherwise. NVIDIA was right when it said it's not a gaming graphics company anymore, because apparently now it's a surveillance state company. You gotta keep the bubble inflated somehow, I guess. There's, to quote Qui-Gon Jinn, there's always a bigger fish. And in this case, the fish is the government. And they need to keep the bubble inflated. Now, the second of the 2 major NVIDIA stories before we get back to other stuff is NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang indicated he sees opportunity in the Middle East for AI, market opportunity there, and he thinks that war will bring, and this is not me editorializing it, this is what he said, he thinks that war will bring stability in the Middle East, and which I was thinking, I'm pretty sure that George Orwell literally wrote those words when he said, quote, "War is peace," end quote, in 1984. But okay, sure. After his GTC keynote, NVIDIA CEO and man who personally wrestled a crocodile for this leather jacket, Jensen Huang, had some more to say, and he returned to one of his beloved pastimes, which is rejoicing with podcasters.
Special episode this week. We've preempted the weekly show, and there's only 3 people we preempt the show for: President Trump, Jesus, and Jensen.
What is this? What are we doing? Jensen joined the All In podcast to discuss everything under the AI umbrella, including NVIDIA's strategy, robotics, open source, geopolitics, data centers, and global supply chains. Jensen ran through many of his favorite talking points.
I can prove it that the $50 billion factory will generate for you the lowest cost tokens. We call that omniverse. It wasn't until ChatGPT put a user interface around it, made it easy for us to use, that generative AI took off. Yes, every job will be transformed. Some jobs will be eliminated. President Trump wants American industry to lead. I would love that the American tech stack is 90% of the world. It's very likely that you're gonna have a lot of pain and suffering, and so you better enjoy it.
NVIDIA CEO parroted his usual AI propaganda, and in one notable segment, an interviewer who just finished dining on a most exquisite boot at the Jensen restaurant asked Jensen about money, and specifically how much NVIDIA is spending on tokens for its engineering teams. In response, Jensen Huang said that engineers should be spending a token budget worth approximately half of their base pay.
So are you spending in NVIDIA $1 billion, $2 billion on tokens for your engineering team right now?
We're trying to. Let me give you the thought experiment. Let's say you have a software engineer or AI researcher and you pay them $500,000 a year. We do that all the time. Okay, this is happening all over the time. That $500,000 engineer at the end of the year, I'm going to ask them how much did you spend in tokens? And that person said $5,000. I will go ape something else.
Yes.
Right.
If that $500,000 engineer did not consume at least $250,000 worth of tokens, I am going to be deeply alarmed.
In other words, man selling shovels says you need more shovels. News at 11. But Jensen keeps making loftier promises about how AI will drive growth. He's even equating GPU compute power to GDP these days, as at a Morgan Stanley event.
So the first thought is that compute equals revenues. Now the big idea, of course, compute equals GDP. That we also know. Compute equals a country's GDP.
But talking about how they think you need to spend half of a base salary on tokens and talking about developing things that have potential for global surveillance applications, it's kind of dark. Let's move into a lighter topic.
I was also asked, given what's happening in the Middle East, is that an area where we believe that we can expand artificial intelligence to? I believe that there's a reason we went to war, and I believe at the end of the war, Middle East will be more stable than before. And so if we were there, if we were considering it before, we should absolutely be considering it after. And so I'm 100% in on that.
Okay, all right. Not a lighter topic. To be clear, Jensen Huang says he's all in on war in Iran. He thinks, but did not specify, that there's a reason for it. We assume the reason is
I like money.
maybe selling weapons, things of that nature. There's a lot of money to be made in war, but he also sees opportunity there, he said. Best of all, though, was when he said that he thinks this will bring stability to the Middle East. Yes, Jensen, tell us more about your opinions, please, on war, so that you put all the rest of us into a position where we also have to comment on your opinions on them. Clearly, this is the time that it'll work. War is in fact peace. This follows Iran reportedly declaring NVIDIA a legitimate military target in the region, alongside other companies fueling AI. NVIDIA's been pro-war for a while now, we think. In fact, we've got a montage for you showing just how desperately they're trying to integrate with the military-industrial complex.
The wealthier our nation, the more we can fund the mightiest military on the planet.
I'm happy that our military is going to use AI technology for defense.
One of the things that we just always have to remember is that the world's mightiest military is supported by the world's mightiest economy. And so the wealth that we generate brings jobs home, creates prosperity in the United States, provides for tax revenues, and ultimately funds the mightiest military on the planet.
So we want America to be the wealthiest country so that we can fund the mightiest military. And I think that is our way of contributing to national security.
And now, with Iran reportedly declaring NVIDIA, I can't believe I'm even saying these words. This is like, should be talking about gaming GPUs. But anyway, with Iran reportedly declaring NVIDIA a legitimate military target, Jensen, it seems you've gotten your wish. Good job. You're finally a real boy. Now you're part of the military-industrial complex. Congratulations. I'm sure all your employees in the region are thrilled. Iran has previously targeted AWS data centers in the UAE and Bahrain with drone strikes, causing cloud service disruptions in the region. AWS said the strikes have, quote, caused structural damage, disrupted power delivery to our infrastructure, and in some cases, required fire suppression activities that resulted in additional water damage, end quote. We emailed NVIDIA's Matt Webling, who previously refused to get on a recorded call to talk about how they were attempting, we thought, to change our editorial direction on DLSS, and asked him about specifically what Jensen Huang meant when he said that he thinks there's a reason for war, and specifically what that reason was. We also asked them why it would bring stability this time, and more specifically and pointedly, if NVIDIA is selling any military of any nation technologies and AI services that would be applicable in this war. And they did not respond. So I'm going to go with yes. I don't know. I think they didn't respond. I just have to assume. But we don't need NVIDIA PR and communications to confirm that NVIDIA has interest in the Middle East, because NVIDIA has sold thousands of data center GPUs in the region. Last May, NVIDIA announced several AI initiatives with the Saudi Arabian government, including a partnership with Humane to deploy 18,000 GB300 chips. Humane is also owned by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, which is the same fund that partnered with Jared Kushner, who is the son-in-law to Donald Trump and married to Ivanka Trump, to purchase EA Games. Further, in November 2025, Microsoft said it had received export licenses from the Commerce Department from both the Biden and Trump administrations to ship thousands of NVIDIA GPUs to the UAE, including the A100, H100, H200, and GB300. The point is, NVIDIA is expanding its presence in the region. The company is planning to build new research and development campuses in Israel. According to the Times of Israel, the outlet said, quote, the campus is expected to accommodate up to 8,000 employees and will significantly expand NVIDIA's presence in northern Israel, end quote. NVIDIA understandably wants to protect its assets and hopefully its people. Maybe not other people, but at least its people, I would hope. But it is uncommon. I can't say I've ever heard it in this industry for a tech CEO, at least a computer tech CEO whom I would be familiar with, to explicitly say that they support war. There's not really a lot of ways to read what he said. And That's the way we're reading it. It's abnormal for a tech CEO to just straight up be like, "Yep, we support that," and no further elaboration on it whatsoever. But militarism is not new to Jensen Huang. He's ratcheted up his military interest for a while now, and he is dragging everyone else with him. But let's get on to some actually lighter hardware topics, like a laptop scam. That's a big relief. That's just a simple scam, just like the old stuff, the good old days when you got ripped off for buying something. We should just let the scammers do it at this point for entertainment, I think. Notebook Check called out laptop manufacturer Chuwi for selling devices with older, worse performing CPUs than advertised. I mean, seriously, actually, what a relief this story is. All right, let's get into our icebreaker story, our relief story. It's like comedic relief, except it's not funny, really, but it's, okay, let's continue. Despite Chuwi marketing its CoreBook X and CoreBook Plus as powered with the Ryzen 5 7430U, it actually shipped them with a 2 years older Ryzen 5 5500U, which Notebook Check claims has an up to, quote, 20% worse, end quote, performance in its benchmarking tests. Oddly, the publication also found that the 5500U presents as a 7430U in BIOS and software, so it's misrepresenting itself. Notebook Check noticed an inconsistent L3 cache, boost clock, and codename, which helped tip them off to the scam. The only way to truly identify the CPU would be to tear down the laptop, which of course they did next. AMD commented on the situation, posted via HKEPC in Hong Kong, and Machine Translated. We'll paraphrase sections of the auto translation that are machine errors to make it clearer. They said, quote, with some paraphrasing, recently Chuwi has come to our attention, which has misrepresented AMD Ryzen 5 5500U products as Ryzen 5 7430U. AMD has never authorized, confirmed, or acquiesced to this behavior in any way, nor has it participated in the labeling or promotional decisions of related products, and is completely unaware of this matter. AMD has always placed great importance on the accuracy and transparency of product information, and is committed to maintaining a fair and orderly market environment and protecting the legitimate rights and interests of our users. Our company has taken this matter very seriously and reserves the right to pursue legal action against the relevant parties, end quote. Interestingly, Chuwi has since edited its CoreBook Plus and CoreBook X listings to replace any mentions of the Ryzen 5 7430U with instead Ryzen 5 processor. 5 days after AMD's response, Chuwi released its first statement, claiming, quote, due to a production error, a limited number of CoreBook X and CoreBook Plus units were assembled with incorrect processors. Gonna interrupt the quote here for a second, but to also misrepresent those processors in software seems intentional. There's not really a lot of ways that can accidentally happen, but let's continue. Quote, if you have received a device that does not match the specifications you ordered, please return it for a full refund. You may initiate the return through your original purchase channel or contact our official support team. They give an email address for assistance, end quote. Chuwi's return guidelines we looked up note, quote, please ensure the device is in original condition with all accessories included, end quote, with the return period ending May 31st, 2026. Now to jump it again, that's not how it works. It's one thing to have a return window for a product you bought and then you decide you don't want it or whatever, but you can't scam someone and then be like, there's a limited window where you can return. Like, that's not how that works. The window is called the statute of limitations, and it's for scamming them. So it would be better to just extend the window into, I don't know, if you bought it and we lied or misrepresented it, then you get your money back, because please don't sue us, thank you. That seems more reasonable, but okay, sure, May 31st. Chuwi's statement doesn't mention the U-Box 7430U mini PC that HKEPC claimed was also affected. It doesn't explain why or how the CPU was mislabeled in BIOS and software. It doesn't describe how to identify the processor, which is especially rich considering it allegedly threatened Notebook Check legally for telling people how to identify the scam, and it only gives affected customers about 2 months to return the device for a refund. Good company. But speaking of good companies, Meta and YouTube. California jurors ordered Meta and Google to pay a woman $3 million in compensation after establishing that, quote, Meta and Google's YouTube were to blame for the depression and anxiety of a woman who compulsively used social media as a small child, end quote, as reported via NPR. In the hearing, which CNN notes is, quote, the first of more than 1,500 similar cases, end quote, making the verdict especially noteworthy as a precedent, the plaintiffs cited numerous mental health issues caused by the platforms. Regarding the ruling, NPR explains, quote, the jury was not tasked with deciding whether Meta and Google had created Kaylee's mental health woes, but rather if her compulsive social media use was a substantial factor in her struggles and if the defective design of the platforms was the direct cause of the distress, end quote. Now, to us, the design is not defective. That is what, I mean, they know what they're doing. They're building social media platforms to cause people to get the quick hits. The game is to keep people on the platforms as long as possible. Look, we're uploading to YouTube. I know how this shit works. Like, it's pretty transparent. I think everyone watching knows how these social media platforms work at this point. And it's the same for Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and everything else, where regardless of who uploads what, the platforms are built specifically to trap people in a loop, and some of them put them in an echo chamber to help perpetuate that loop. And seeing a case about this is big. This is good news if any of these companies do anything to try to change how they operate for fear of fines. Unfortunately, it seems unlikely. The money you make is going to likely be a lot larger than the fines. But still, one can hope that the system works as it should, just like these platforms are working as they were designed to work. According to PBS, quote, Meta consistently argued that Kaylee had struggled with mental health separate from her social media use, often pointing to her turbulent home life, end quote. Google argued that, quote, this case misunderstands YouTube, which is a responsibly built streaming platform, not a social media site, end quote. That's right, they're arguing semantics, the best possible argument when you have no other arguments to argue. Google is saying, nuh-uh, your social media. What's the play here? Like, it's, no. It's, what we did all of that stuff, okay? But we're not a social media platform. We're a responsibly built streaming service. Go fuck yourself, YouTube. It's a social media platform. I mean, come on. You know, like, you got posts. They have community things now. You can create like a forum basically on your YouTube channel. Hey, come on. It's the same thing. The ruling was in favor of the plaintiff, with NBC reporting that Meta's assessing its legal options, while Google is already planning to appeal. There's a lot of other stories too, so we have a second hardware news episode coming up. We've got some more. I mean, AMD, Lisa Su is talking about how she's joined the, as I'm calling it, the Council of Corruption. We'll talk about that. Epic Games had massive layoffs. We're going to find a bunch more hardware news as well. I'll put it at the front of the episode, just like we did with this one. As the icebreaker, you know, I don't know. It's a mess. This industry is fucked. Like, it's just in terms of the corruption, and it's really the NVIDIA stuff. And now, you know, we'll talk about Lisa Su in the next one, like we did recently in her special video. But in this episode specifically, it's this NVIDIA stuff where I just read it in the news. I'm like, what the fuck happened? Like, what is this? It's just, I remember doing hardware news at the house before we moved to the first office and then moved here, where the topics, it's like you would never talk about this stuff with NVIDIA. It was whatever gaming GPU, whatever driver they launched. They weren't even fucking them up yet. That came later. That was a new innovation. Updates to things, this was pre-RTX as well, so there's updates to things like, I think it was GameWorks at the time, stuff like that. AMD with shitty drivers, and now that's turned around, so that's at least good news. Intel's turned around, that's good news for CPUs, that is. I mean, but, you know, it's just, I don't understand how we got here as an industry where now you have the gaming GPU guy who, one, describes GeForce as his greatest marketing campaign ever and says that now GeForce gamers can be proper customers by being customers for data center products. Something he actually said, by the way. That's not, I'm not editorial, that's in the GTC Keto. Go watch it if you want, but he's saying that, and then he's turning around and he's talking about war and his belief in it. And it's just like, what happened? I don't get it. I mean, well, I get it. Conceptually, I can follow it. Logically, I can follow it. Exactly. I've been here. So, like, I get it. I don't understand. I don't know, man. All right. Okay. We'll close this one out. We had a lot of reviews this past week, so there's some good stuff. We got the 2 CPU reviews up, really interesting stuff, clean of all the bullshit. It's just straight up benchmarks. It's fun. You'll like it. It's like the old times before the companies did all this other BS. 270 KP in particular was an interesting one because that one, I think, super competitive with AMD. The knock to a case review we did, I think about 10 days ago or something, that's super interesting as well because that's got some of our fan testing charts in it. So if you've been looking for those, really interesting stuff. And then our Crimson Desert benchmarks had our first sort of real animation error, as we're renaming it, simulation time error charts with actual like head-to-head comparisons of GPUs. It is awesome. So if you want just technical stuff, you got plenty of it on the channel. Go check it out. And we'll have another hardware news coming up shortly with some hardware news that is pure hardware and some hardware news that is these companies doing the stuff they do. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more. Go to store.gamersnexus.net, patreon.com/gamersnexus, and we'll see you all next time.